filmmaker Jennifer Hall Lee. She has written a book about Hillary Clinton and volunteered for her 2008 campaign. And Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson, he's with the consulting firm Shulman Communications. What do you make of this poll now that has just come out in the wake of Iowa and now this debate? Sanders now seems to be surging.
I think it underscores the fact that he's really got a message that's resonating all across the country, right? This sort of income inequality, the system is rigged, people have stagnant wages, they feel like the deck is stacked against them, is really penetrating across the country. And I think the dead heat sort of tie that we saw in Iowa underscores the fact that people now are looking at him seriously.
But I have to say, during that debate last night, when it came to foreign policy, when it came to national security, it just looked like Hillary had those points down, and that might be one of his weaknesses going into this race against her. Would you agree with that?
She is definitely the more experienced candidate, going all the way back to when she was First Lady. She has worked with global women's rights, she has worked with children's rights, she has worked against Wall Street, and she has always fought for the middle class.
Sanders is extremely popular with really young people. It's funny because they see him as a sort of like older guy. He's disheveled hair, and whereas Hillary, it's kind of interesting because she can't have a disheveled hair and the same appearance. Sort of like I don't know. They can't play that same sort of deck from the card from that deck. What do you make of that?
We haven't had a female president in this country, so it's very hard to place the image of a woman behind the Oval Office desk. We have nothing to compare it to. We're used to men telling us how things are going to be. And here we have a woman that's far more experienced than any of the men in the field. And that's a little bit hard for people to square with.
Well, and real quick, talking about experience, I think Hillary really dominated last night on the foreign policy front, like you guys mentioned. She sort of won the commander-in-chief debate test last night, and he clearly failed it, right? They're not really betting on foreign policy when it comes to Bernie Sanders.
When you brought up Wall Street, and that Hillary has fought against Wall Street, but that was not the message that Sanders was sending out last night. So let's take a look at the clip where he really hammers her on her ties to big money.
Kid gets caught with marijuana, that kid has a police record. A Wall Street executive destroys the economy, $5 billion settlement with the government, no criminal record. That is what power is about. That is what corruption is about.
Let's not just be narrowly focused on one part of the problem. We have a lot of issues with corporate power that have to be addressed. My plan takes us further, and it would do the job.
What do you make of that? Well, how did it resonate?
Right, it's a strong attack against Hillary Clinton. She doesn't have a good enough answer when it comes to the Goldman Sachs $600,000 speaking fees, right? She's got to figure out a way to sort of break through, and I think she's got to pivot. Instead of being the continuity, more of the same candidate, people are just elevating for change. They want fundamental overhaul and reform. She is a change maker, but she's got to find a way to sort of consolidate that message, because right now it's quite convoluted, and that, I think, is how she's going to break through. But she's got to pivot away from her current answers on the Goldman Sachs issue.
She did have a tough time seemingly answering that question.
Well, Bernie Sanders voted to deregulate derivatives and swaps, and it was Hillary Clinton who went to Wall Street and warned them against it. So let's take a look at what was happening behind the scenes when the derivatives issue was going down. Who benefited from that?
We want to move on to Republicans, but first I just want to ask you, as a feminist, there is this rift between these two candidates, right? Because a lot of people are blaming Hillary supporters, saying if you are a true feminist, you have to support Hillary. That supporting Bernie would be a vote against a feminist because she is a woman. Are people buying that argument, and will that work in her favor?
Right, well, I think it's working with older women, right? She's still winning overwhelmingly with older women, 45 and older. She's not winning with young women. And I think part of that is because Bernie Sanders' attack on Hillary, she's part of the problem. These are young people who haven't really been paying attention to politics for a very long time, right? They're new to politics, they're in college, they're young people, they're high school seniors. And they're just seeing all the gridlock and dysfunction in Washington. They're not seeing problem solving. She's got to figure out a way to articulate her message of all the great accomplishments that she's done on the feminist front, on women's rights. She's not breaking through, but she's got to figure out a way to do it.
I want to ask you guys about Donald Trump. He isn't known for his self-censorship, but last night during a speech he said, one of the words you can't say on TV. In all fairness, Trump whispered the word, but you could still hear it, so we bleeped it too. Listen.
We're going to have businesses that used to be in New Hampshire that are now in Mexico come back to New Hampshire, and you can tell them to go themselves.
So he denies actually saying it. He says he actually.
What? We just watched the video.
He said
What do you
that
deny?
he encouraged them to finish the sentence, I guess.
What's the difference?
I mean, does it sort of change anything? I guess this is sort of.
It's not presidential.
It's the difference between a woman running for president and a man running for president. If Hillary Clinton said
There's
that,
lots of men, though, that would have not said that, Jennifer, though.
there's a lot of men out there in this election who are saying some pretty outrageous things. And Bernie Sanders has told people to shut up in rallies. Trump says what he says. Hillary Clinton does not say these things, yet she gets hammered for all sorts of things. It's a much harder road. Even President Barack Obama talked about that during the 2008 primary, it was a much harder road for her than for him. He mentioned it recently in an interview in Politico.
So you think it's a gender thing, the salty language? That's interesting.
I think men can push up against a wall and get away with more than women can.
She's been criticized for shouting, even,
When
so
she's
even
talking.
raising your voice, yeah.
I think that's the double standard when it comes to women and men, right? Because like everybody else running for president on the Republican side or the other Democrats, they shout, but no one calls them out for shouting.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Although we have seen many comments about their looks on the Republican side as well.
That's
So I
true.
think fairness is on the horizon.
Jennifer Huntley contributed an essay to the new book, Love Her Not, The Hillary Paradox. And again, Dave Jacobson with Chalmers Communications. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Guys.
Thank you.
We'll have you back. All right, so Bernie Sanders supporters, they are very